On today's show, we're joined once again by Andrew from Oaktree, and I have to ask a question. Have you ever wondered how a foil balloon is made? Well, on today's show, we find out. Hello, Greg from Balloon Market here, and welcome to BMTV. And as you can see, we are joined once again by Andrew from Oaktree.
Thanks for having us, Greg.
I think it's fair to say that you might describe yourself sometimes as a bit of a geek.
I think that would be a very fair analogy, yes.
So we're gonna get geeky.
We're gonna go full geek
with balloons. So
yeah.
you've been involved in the actual the whole process of getting a balloon from up here to here.
Yes.
And you're still involved in that. You still do a lot of that.
A lot.
So
yeah.
I really want to understand from your point of view the anatomy of the process, but also the anatomy of a balloon for people out there that haven't seen that before.
Okay.
So
Crikey.
talk us through the process.
Right, okay. Well, you firstly, you need to film. That's, of course, number one. So what you have, and what we choose to have, is a biaxial orientated nylon, which makes it a lot stronger because you have structural strength going all the way through. You also have a second layer, which is the inside here, and this is a polyethylene. It's a very complicated polyethylene, so it's been co-extruded, which means that you can put extra blends in there for strength, adhesion, and it just gives you a much better ability. So when you've got the balloon together, it doesn't come apart. That is an incredibly important part of the process. So once you actually start, you've actually now got your nylon and you've got your polyethylene together.
So you've got two layers essentially.
It's a two layers. This is a pretty conventional film. We have in the past used materials where there's 5 layer. As you can imagine,
Really?
It's incredibly technical stuff. And actually, we do have various projects next year that will be introducing it again.
So why would you use 5 layers over 2 layers?
I tell you, the best way to describe it is think of plywood. So if you have a 10mm plyboard, it's incredibly strong. Whereas if you just had one singular wood, it would be fairly weak.
Yeah.
And the strength is in the structure of the layers. So that is the reason why you would do the same in film. So the principle is exactly the same. The strength that you get from it is far more than you would get from, say, a single or 2 layers.
So would you use that more for shaped balloons? Like the unicorn
right, exactly.
Okay.
So if you had a highly complex shape where the rate, you know, for instance, if we look at the horse, the unicorn or the horse, you know, you're going to have a very tight radius in there. So when you have inflation, you have pressure issues. So if you had something that was a lot stronger, it enables you to have a more creative shape without the fear of it bursting.
Okay, that's good. We're going to be doing a test at the end of this, everybody, so be ready. Okay,
and so it's not me with the helium in.
So we've got a two-layer one here.
Yes, that's right.
So essentially, this one is the one that makes it stick together.
For like a round balloon.
Put the
That's
two
it.
together.
Yep.
And the other side is the
nylon.
Nylon.
Yeah. So once you've actually had that process through, we then go on to having. Let's actually have something a bit more colourful, for instance. So what we now do is we need to metalise. So you can see the unprinted part here.
Yeah.
So this is the aluminium metallisation that we then put on. So it goes through another process where it's the aluminium is heated onto the nylon. Once that's on there, you then have a perfect substrate to start printing.
So that's a coating?
It's a coating, correct.
Does it go through a machine? How does it actually get applied?
It's actually a wire. So it's a heated wire that goes through, because what you don't want is to have too much aluminium on the surface. And there are a couple of reasons why you wouldn't want that. One is you wouldn't want it too thin, but more importantly, you don't want it too thick. There's a real sweet spot when it comes to the aluminium on the foil.
So what, a wire goes
across the web,
the top of the foil?
Across the foil, that's right, and then creates this effect.
Wow.
So the reason why we always look for that sweet spot, and you know, we've done a lot of testing in the past, if you have it too thick, see, aluminium does 2 things. It gives you a barrier for helium, which is wonderful, but it also allows us to have amazing designs on there. So you can see, if you look back at the unicorn, for instance, a classic example, you're going to see parts in there where the aluminium's coming through. So it creates a nice, lovely metallic effect.
Yeah.
So the problem is with balloons, by the very nature of when you inflate them, they stretch. If you have your aluminium too thick, it will crack.
Okay.
And then, of course, people will be unsatisfied because they don't last as long as they should.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
it is it's quite a fine art.
Okay. All right.
Yeah. So we have that on there. We then take it to the printing stage, which will be done on a flexographic basis. And you can see this is what the results are like. I mean,
so this goes through a printing machine, effectively.
Printing machine,
so
very big one. Yes.
Okay,
Yeah.
and so this is the base layer. The whole thing goes through the printing machine, and you get a whole bunch of the same prints.
And you do indeed. That's
so
right.
the one
yeah.
you've got here, if we stretch this out a little bit, becomes.
Yeah.
Have you got the flat balloon?
I have indeed. Yes, and here we are, hiding away.
Flat balloon there
Creates this. So there we are.
Which eventually becomes, well, when you inflate it, it looks
that's
like
it. And there you go.
that
And that's
one
what
there.
yeah, that's it. Yeah.
So, okay, so we've got this
Yes.
all printed. What do we do next?
Okay, so now it's in the converting stage. So we will, in the factory, put it onto the main production line. So you'll have a top and a bottom web. So hence why the two sides of a balloon. So you end up with two of these rolls, and they will go through. And this is where the fun starts. So you want to make sure your tensions are right. This is actually a very important thing, which is can be quite tricky. You know, when you're talking effectively as a stretchy film, and that can be quite challenging. So tension controls, which we do digitally, is very important. You then have to make sure you insert the valve, and this is what we start with. We have very big rolls like this, which get slit and inserted and welded inside on one layer before the top layer comes on and then starts to create the balloon.
Okay. So that's done at this stage or at this stage?
This stage.
This stage.
So this is the actually, it actually lays on one web of the film.
Okay.
So it will be sandwiched in between the two layers.
Yeah.
Hence, then creating a valve.
So you put the valve onto one layer before that
Correct.
goes into the what you say you call it converting.
Within
the
process
same
of the machine.
I see.
So
okay.
you have your two rolls. It's going through the machines, and then you'll have a valve insertion unit. So it's pretty much about halfway through the machine, not quite that, but it's just for the principle of the conversation. So you then have the valve inserted. Then we want to make sure we get perfect registration, because what is very, very important, of course, is that the design is in the centre of the balloon, because what we don't want is our monkey over here. The happy birthday has to be central. That's very, very important.
So registration means getting it lined up.
Correct. So you have your top and bottom rolls perfectly lining up, and typically we would actually want to have that within about a tolerance of 1 millimetre.
But you've got two separate rolls coming in together.
Yes.
And obviously this is a stretchy film.
Yes, that's right.
But you've got to keep it within 1 millimetre.
We would be wanting to keep that within 1 millimetre, absolutely.
So it's challenging.
It's very challenging, yeah. So we run the machines quite slow. We do that because we want to achieve our goal. It's very tempting to just stick the machine on full blast and try and sort of create more yield, but we definitely wouldn't do that. And it's especially when if you go off and we've seen this before in balloons where the happy birthday is offset in the centre. And if you think when you inflate a balloon, you have it's round. So if you're not careful, you start to lose some of the message. And that's just something that's completely unacceptable to us. So it's important. So registration is a very important part. And also, well, of course, you want to make sure that your alignment of the valve is also perfect as well, because what you don't want is the valve moving outside of the cut area. So valve placement is incredibly important, and you should be able to see a very equal valve going in, which means directionally you're going to have a good inflation.
I noticed when I was inflating these balloons that it was very easy to know where to put the valve in.
Yes, yeah.
And I've never seen one that's a darker colour like that before, so it was just really obvious and really easy. Yeah,
and actually we do this for two reasons, actually. It's sort of because of the darker colour. What this actually means is that so there's a series of photo cells on the machines, and the colour readers. So it's basically an electronic eye. So what it does is it will actually register the colour and know exactly where to put it. So for us, we found, we started with white ones, but we found there was more of a better registration with a darker colour. So really contrast. If you're looking for contrast, this is what we found to be the sweet spot in terms of getting accurate positioning.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. So it was more for us than anyone else, if I'm totally honest. But I'm going to say we've done it so people could see.
Okay. Well, it just made it real. I've not inflated a balloon, honestly, for years.
Yeah.
Not one of these anyway. A foil balloon. And it was so much easier. When we started the business, it was balloon in a box. We were inflating balloons all day, putting them in boxes. And that just made it so much, because sometimes you go under, sometimes you go over, and it was very messy.
Yeah, the problem is if you're not careful, if you don't see it and get it wrong, you can damage the balloon, and of course you have a problem. But no, we make it nice and clear. I mean, we also do as well. I don't know if it's on this one. We do actually. So on the shapes, so we now have an arrow.
Okay.
So of course, what you can actually see is the that's where I've got to go. So that's where you position your
that's what made it easy.
nozzle, and away you go.
That's what makes it really easy
makes it so much easier.
I was very impressed with that.
Thank you. Okay.
So you've got the two pieces coming in registered. You've got the valve on one.
Yes.
And then you glue them together, essentially.
Okay, so we now need to create a hole on the top web to be able to make sure that you can get to the valve, otherwise it'll be a sealed unit. So on the top will be a punch, which will be in line on registration again, to make sure that we get perfect alignment. That will be, again, done on registration and time. That goes through. Once then we get the two layers come together, and when it comes together, it should look like that. So what we've got is a perfect central hole, easy for inflation. We know for a fact that valve is completely secure and won't be at risk at leaking. So
so this one here, you can see you've got silver and blue. Is that now been replaced by these ones that show the arrow?
No, so on our 18-inch we make it in this way, and we've always done it that way. We really like this. It's a belt and braces for us on the 18-inch, because we have something extra that we do with our valve here. So we have effectively a double weld, and we want a perfect situation where there's no leakage. And so this valve system works much better with the 18-inch.
Okay, so the hole's there, the valve's on the other one.
That's it.
And what happens?
And so now you have the two webs coming together, so it goes through a series of rollers. So now the films are together. In registration, valve is perfectly placed, and then we take it into the weld station, and then you have the heads coming down, which then seals the film together.
So it uses heat, essentially.
Heat,
so just like we use heat sealers to seal airfill balloons or whatever.
It's a massive heat sealing machine.
Okay.
Yeah, that's
but it
exactly
also cuts. It cuts it heats it to the point that it just cuts the balloon.
That's the next stage.
Oh, God.
Yeah,
okay.
Yeah,
all right,
that's
getting ahead of myself.
That's it. Okay. So what you've got, you now have it welded. Once it's welded, it then moves into the next station, and this station is where you see the shape of the balloon. So it gets cut out using heat, which is the great way, because you end up with a sealed edge. And once it goes from there, it comes out on an automatic system and is collected by our wonderful people in production.
So it's sealed, and then it goes to the cutting and is sort of sealed again. Is that what you're saying?
It's an edge seal. Yes, that's right. Yeah. So you've
so the initial seal is
5 mil. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah. So you have a 5 mil weld. I mean, theoretically, you can actually have welds at 2 mil.
Yeah.
You could actually make a perfectly good balloon at 2 mil. Why do we do 5? Again, back to, we want it to be absolutely rock solid.
Yeah.
For us, from a structural point of view, we are a little bit obsessive with making sure that we do strength.
The weld becomes this.
Correct.
This
that's right. Yeah, that's it. So
that's
what you'll see.
That doesn't look any more than 2 mils back.
It's about 2 to 3.
Yeah.
Yeah, that one there. See, what we do is, so we actually weld at 5, but we cut inside of the weld.
I see. Okay.
So that's it. But if you start to actually weld at 2 and then cut, your tolerance of margin is wafer thin, and certainly I wouldn't be very happy with that.
So this is one of the reasons that you've got a very low failure rate with
It's extremely low.
balloons.
Yeah. It is. I mean, if you look at industry standard, I would like to think we're way under that.
Yeah.
Well, there's another thing that actually, in my opinion, again, this is just from a personal point of view, it's the material you use as well.
Okay.
I mean, we use very well branded polymers. We trust them. We know their composition is excellent and consistent. But you can also use polyester if you want instead of nylon. I'm personally not a fan of polyester. I know it gets used, but the problem is with polyester, unlike nylon, is you don't have so much stretch. In fact, it's significantly less. And so if you have less stretch, by the very definition of what we're making, something that gets inflated and stretched, I personally think the failure rate is higher.
Okay.
So this is why we won't use polyester, we stick to nylon. Is it more expensive? Yeah, it is. Probably about 30% more expensive, but you get a far, far better balloon.
So what you're saying there is that just because you do that doesn't necessarily mean if it feels thicker that it's better quality.
Correct. Yeah. Because all they'll do is so your polyethylene is by far the cheapest element to the balloon.
All right, yeah.
So if you think, right, well, I tell you what, we're working with a 14 micron polyethylene, well, that's it. How about if we make it 18 micron and we'll skim on the nylon? So you sort of think, oh, that feels quite nice, but actually, and again, it's subjective to your own opinion. I mean, your barrier quality of nylon is far, far superior to that of polyethylene. So from a standpoint of it lasting longer, you're going to be better off having a better grade of nylon than a thinner one. And actually, there is one thing I will actually say about polyester, is that polyester has a better barrier than nylon.
Okay.
So that, it's not all bad. I mean, if you look at polyester, your balloon would last longer, for sure. There's no doubt about it. But you have to kind of weigh the odds off of, do you want something that's going to have a higher failure rate but last longer? And for me personally, I think we make balloons that last perfectly fine in the amount of days that they will stay inflated. So I would rather go on structural quality over time.
And when you consider the balloons, as long as they stay inflated, if you're going beyond a few days, it doesn't really matter, does it? Because most balloons are used for an event.
They are.
That might be a few hours or even a couple of days.
But I mean, you would. This 18-inch here is going to float wonderfully for 5 days, and many days after, looking a little bit sort of as if it needs something to eat.
I just love that these are all manufactured in the UK. How many balloons how many lines do you actually manufacture here in the UK?
Goodness me, what a question.
Sorry, I didn't want that.
I would actually say we must now be up to, we must be approaching 400 now.
Okay.
We must be.
400
different designs.
lines
I think we do.
here in the UK.
Well, if we're not, we certainly feels like it. But next year will be a lot more. I think we've got around 30 that we're working on at the moment.
Yeah, that's exciting.
And I would expect by the end of the year that will be at least double that.
No, well,
next year that is. Yeah,
we love your balloons, and our customers love your balloons, and we don't get very many returns of failure at all.
Good.
So that's a great thing.
Yeah.
Andrew, thank you so much
for
talking us through that. As a guest on BMTV, you've got to ask the question of the week. Have you thought of one yet?
Oh my goodness.
I did warn you.
Question of the week, Greg, is what shall we make next? Shape or 18-inch foil message? Please let us know. I'd love to hear.
All right, thank you.
Okay.
Leave your comments down below on Facebook and on YouTube. Andrew, thank you so much for coming in again.
Pleasure to be here. Yeah.
And thank you, everybody, for watching. Thank you for subscribing. If you haven't, hit the little subscribe button and the bell icon. You'll be notified every time we upload a new show. Check us out on Instagram. Check us out on TikTok, where the fun stuff happens. From myself and Andrew, stay happy, stay positive. See you next time. Bye.
Bye-bye.